Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Survivor 50 Wishlist Podcast, an off-season series where we're trying to figure out who could and should come back for the upcoming season of Survivor 50. My name is Mike Bloom, and here we are. We're not at the finish line yet, but we are taking one big step to it as you all have let your voices be heard. And how, from this first round of the fan vote, I'm here today to reveal the top 50 who are moving on to the second and final round as we reopen the vote one last time. I mean, the first thing I gotta say is, wow. To say my expectations were defied would be an understatement. You all came out. We had nearly 20,000 votes in this first round over the course of less than a week. That is astounding. I have so much gratitude to everyone who voted, even everyone who checked out the podcast previously, even if it was just a couple. Of course, to everyone who helped out on RHAP, both behind the screen and in front of it, to make sure these podcasts came out in a timely and hopefully entertaining fashion. To the players who started promoting this poll, which was a very happy surprise for me. I don't want to save, to expend all my thanks because the finish line is still ahead of us. But I've talked about this a couple of times. This podcast happens to be releasing on my birthday. And this has truly felt like a gift for me over the past couple months to get to talk about a very fun thought exercise for a show that has meant so much to me, as much as it's meant to so many other people out there as well. It's been such a great time to get to do this the entire summer. And for those that have been along for the ride, truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Vanaka or Kun, whatever merge tribe name you want to use. This was so incredibly gratifying, and I cannot wait to see where we go from here. Let's talk about where we go from here, shall we? Again, nearly 20,000 of you voted. We had a list taken from the near 700 contestants who played Survivor down to about like 225 or so. And you all voted for which people you wanted to see from the list on Survivor 50. I will say it was a tight race. Certainly as we get into, the vote getters that ranked number 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. We're talking a difference of like 100 votes between them. So don't ever think your vote doesn't matter, okay? I know we're losing our votes in the new era, but you all showed up and showed out to make sure your voices were heard. Let's not lose that momentum for the next round. Speaking of the next round, so again, just to reset what we're doing here today, after all these votes came in, we tabulated the results, and I have for you today the top 50 vote getters from this first round of the fan vote. I'm going to reveal today the top 50 who move on to this final round, and then we are going to reopen the polls for a second and final round of voting. Let us not tarry on further, or let's not tarry, move on further. I've talked for enough, as is indicated by me sort of globbing over that phrase. Let's get into the top 50 of the Survivor 50 wish list, shall we? And we start with a very fun one, because one of the many things I've enjoyed about this process is getting to talk about those who have not graced the beaches of Survivor in quite some time. But we're talking about someone who certainly did back in the day. First and foremost, Amanda Kimmel. Amanda coming from Survivor China into Micronesia, into Heroes versus Villains. Amanda certainly a standout as a player from that middle era of the show. The first player to go to Final Tribal Council back-to-back, finishing third and second there. Next up, Angelina Keeley, another fellow third place finisher here from a Survivor David versus Goliath, proving she is a Goliath in the realm of negotiation, in the realm of ladder climbing, and in the realm of creating iconic quotes such as, "Natalie, can I have your jacket?" And I'm sure Angelina will be asking all of you, "Can I have your vote?" Next up, the purple pants badass himself, Bryce Isaiah from Survivor Cagayan. Truly a beautiful person inside and out. Bryce has made a name for himself outside of his 16th place finish on Cagayan, both in hosting the Purple Pants podcast, being involved in a lot of action behind the scenes with the Black Survivor Alliance in 2020, as well as hosting a slew of viewing parties in the new era as part of Bryson Wen Presents. Next up, one of the standouts of the new era, Carolyn Weiger. Carolyn, one of the most unique personalities we have ever had on the show, which helped kind of mask a really killer game. This is somebody who was finding idols, making these moves without anyone necessarily the wiser about it. Carolyn was able to cut a swath in this game all the way to the final three, where she ultimately finished in third place, but is regarded, certainly by Sia, as one of the most popular contestants in recent memory. And where Carolyn goes, this guy isn't very far behind usually. Carson Garrett, in fact, he finished one place behind her, our fourth place finisher from Survivor 44, the youngest player of the season. Carson was able to use that youthful perception to his advantage, as well as his studiousness, becoming the puzzle master of the season and one of the biggest players. Goes out in fire making at the final four, the flames dancing in front of his eyes, like we saw in his glasses the entire season. Next up, moving one season back, Cassidy Clark, the second place finisher from Survivor 43. Cassidy, one of the biggest challenge performers of the season, was able to overcome some of her tightest allies turning on her at a certain point to make her way all the way to the final three, where she lost controversially to Gabler. Next up, I guess speaking of that outcome, let's talk about one of our more recent players, second place finisher from Survivor 46, Charlie Davis. Charlie was able to navigate the havoc that the 46 post-merge had alongside one of his tightest allies, Maria, before the two inevitably turned on each other. Charlie was able to cultivate an alliance of others to make their way to the end, where Charlie loses in a squeaker, a very close 5-3 vote. I guess the trend continues here with our next player on the top 50, Chrissy Hoffbeck, one of the titular heroes from Survivor Heroes versus Healers versus Hustlers. Chrissy forms a tight alliance in the beginning with the eventual winner in Ben before things turn acrimonious towards the mid-merge, and Chrissy attempts to lead the charge against Ben for the rest of the season. Chrissy ties the record for most immunity challenges won by a woman and makes her way to the final three, where she ultimately finishes as runner-up. And we go from Chrissy to Christian Hubicki from Survivor David versus Goliath. Certainly one of these standout characters, robot scientist, slide puzzle expert, filibuster of many different topics during that one extremely memorable immunity challenge, idol finder, idol player, and all that added up to make him the biggest threat in the game, where he was finally taken out at the final seven. Cirie Fields, a name that requires no explanation, but I'll give it just a little bit of a teaser. Cirie infamously got up off the couch in Survivor Exile Island, and though she was afraid of leaves initially, she trampled on her competition, much like some nicely fallen greenery from the trees. Cirie, regarded as one of the most popular contestants of all time, she was able to turn a fourth place finish in Exile Island into future appearances in Micronesia, Heroes versus Villains, and Game Changers. And in every season, she has somehow gone out in incredibly unconventional ways, culminating in, of course, the famous Advantage Get-In in Survivor Game Changers. And since participating on Survivor, Cirie has gone on to finally get that reality TV win in her victory in Season 1 of The Traitors US, and last summer appeared on Big Brother Season 25, actually with her son Jared, who was a previous loved one's visit, where she made it all the way to 5th place. Now we move on from somebody who has played 4 times to someone who has only played 1, but it was certainly a standout performance for Sydney Gillen from Survivor Co. Wrong. Sydney was a bodybuilder and was able to flex her muscles both literally and strategically when, after surviving a winnowing down of her chaotic Brawn tribe, she was eventually able to turn the tables on them at the merge and run things towards the end of the game, where she goes out in fire making alongside her closest ally, Aubrey. Davey Rickenbacker. Where's Davey? He is here on the top 50. Another standout from Survivor David versus Goliath. Davey represented what a David is, someone who was finding advantages, playing them to help these big strategic maneuvers that the Davids were doing, and was able to put together a very impressive performance, making it all the way to the final 6. D. Valladares, our first winner here being talked about. The winner of Survivor 45 puts together what some would argue is one of the most dominant performances in the new era, able to keep multiple number ones in the game, despite the fact that they were actively targeting each other, and able to steer basically the entire course of the post-merge using those one-on-one relationships, as well as some key challenge wins. Next up, Dominic Abate, part of one of the most strategically dominant duos in Survivor history, running the table on a Ghost Island alongside Wendell Holland. And the two of them were in such lockstep that they actually, for the first time in Survivor history, tied in the final Tribal Council jury vote, where the third place finisher, Laurel, ultimately gave the victory to Wendell. Dominic is regarded as one of the most strategically dominant runners-up in the show's history. Earl Cole. We haven't seen Earl for a long time, not since Survivor Fiji, the first time that they were in Fiji. Earl was able to put together an incredibly dominant game. He went from starting as a have-not to having $1 million by the end of it, the first unanimous winner in the show's history. Dr. Evie Jagoda, starting in the first season of the new era, Evie was able to evade a lot of things being thrown their way, including new beware advantages and a very close call with knowledge is power, and was able to escape becoming the number one target for a couple of votes before eventually being taken out in a split tribal council. Franny Marin. Franny coming from Survivor 44, one of the biggest challenge beasts of the season, and also well known for a flirtmans turned nerdmans turned to off-screen showmans with Matt. Gabby Pascuzzi, going back to Survivor David versus Goliath. Gabby wanted to play in the sand with Christian and play the game as well. At a certain point, decided to take her fate into her own hands and go for Christian, only to get idled out in the process when her former closest ally played his idol. Hunter McKnight, coming to us from Survivor 46. Hunter proved himself to be one of the most impressive challenge performers in recent memory, to the point where he does become a huge threat at the final 9, where he ends up getting taken out with an idol in his pocket. Jake O'Kane, our third place finisher from Survivor 45, had a lot of big moves that had us all saying, whoa, especially when, unfortunately, none of them really seemed to go off the way Jake wanted. Definitely the most recent inductee into the long Survivor history of Charlie Brown contestants, though he had, of course, a heart of gold. Jerry Manthe, we're throwing it back right now, all the way back to Survivor, the Australian Outback, as well as a participant in Survivor All-Stars and fourth place finisher in Survivor Heroes versus Villains. Jerry considered one of the OG villains in Survivor, the devil in the blue bikini, Man-Eater Manthe. Jerry was able to navigate her long-seated relationship with Colby throughout her 3 seasons, and in some people's opinions, was able to leave Heroes versus Villains her 3rd time out with her most positive reception yet. Jesse Lopez, one of the big power players of Survivor 43, someone that was steering the vast majority of the post-merge, including one of the biggest moves we have seen in recent memory when he takes Cody's idol and uses it against him to blindside his number one ally. Jesse's big risks unfortunately fall short when he is taken out in Final Four fire making. Jonathan Penner, considered one of the best narrators in Survivor history. Writer and actor Penner has participated in Survivor Cook Islands, Survivor Micronesia, where he was medevaced, which put him on Survivor Philippines. Definitely regarded as one of the most sarcastic, funny characters, always reminding us to keep the sunny side up and remember to suck eggs. Caleb Gabriewald. Caleb, big underdog from Survivor 45, part of the hot mess tribe that was Lulu, was able to squeak by to the merge where he gets immediately targeted for being a big social threat, has the first major successful shot in the dark play in Survivor history besides Jamie, and is able to nullify a record number of votes against him before becoming the first member of the jury. Cass McQuillan, a standout amongst the standout cast of Survivor Cagayan. Cass took the game into her own hands in multiple ways, most prominently at the merge of Cagayan when she decides to flip on her Brains Tribe alliance to join up with the brawnier side. She makes her way all the way to the final three, making friends and enemies along the way before being eliminated in what someone consider one of the worst decisions in Survivor history. Katora Tops is next, making the top 50. Katora, our fourth place finisher from Survivor 45, one of our secret lawyers on the season. Most well remembered for her complicated conflicts with her fellow Bellows in Bruce and Jake. Kelly Wentworth ends up turning straw into gold as she fashions a fifth boot finish in Survivor San Juan del Sur into making her way onto Survivor Cambodia, where she becomes the underdog and one of the fan favorite characters of the season, nullifying up to Caleb a record number of votes, playing two idols before being taken out in fourth place as one of the biggest threats to win the game. And then she eventually also comes back for Survivor Edge of Extinction. And once again, Kelly is in a fan vote with another Kelly, but I'm not talking Wigglesworth this time. I'm talking Kelly Nalbandian. Kelly from Survivor 45, someone that had a good momentum going into the early merge, but is one of the first victims of the Reba 4 alliance, and it culminates in one of the most memorable exits in Survivor history. Hashtag what the hell, guys. Malcolm Freeberg, a big fan favorite player from Survivor Philippines into Survivor Caramoan, survives one of the worst tribe cullings in Survivor history in Matt Singh, where him and Denise are able to make their way back from that to make it all the way to the final four, where they inevitably turn on each other. Malcolm gets taken out in fourth place, comes immediately back the next season as a favorite, and becomes an underdog at the merge. Strings together a couple of impressive moves, including the Three Amigos Tribal Council, but unfortunately gets taken out soon after. And then also appears on Survivor Game Changers, where he is taken out in one of the wildest early tribal councils in recent Survivor history. Marianne Oketch, the winner of Survivor 42, one of the most unique characters to win Survivor, able to utilize her perception as a goofy, self-proclaimed weirdo to pen a bunch of surprisingly cutthroat moves and putting together one of the most impressive final tribal council performances in recent memory to take home the near unanimous win. Michaela Bradshaw. Michaela, a standout in Survivor Millennials versus Gen X, despite the fact that she is voted out right before the merge, has one of the best reactions to her being voted out in Survivor history, to the point where it brings her back the very next season for Survivor Game Changers, where she makes the jury and then some, making it all the way to 7th place. But those that check out reality TV in general know that Michaela has made an even bigger name for herself as of late on The Challenge. Natalie Bolton here, the last fan standing from Survivor Fans versus Favorites, someone who really comes out of nowhere at the mid-merge with promises to floss with certain players' jugulars. She is someone who ends up playing a key role in the dominance of the Black Widow Brigade and is also behind one of the biggest standout jury questions in Survivor history. Omer Zahir of Survivor 42, an exotic animal vet who was an expert not only in Animalia, but also this game as well. Someone that was able to both navigate and cause a lot of the chaos that happened in the post-merge before eventually the chaos came for him as his closest ally. Marianne was able to bring together this big plan involving an extra vote to get Omer out as the biggest threat at the final 6. Ozzy, a 4-time player coming in second place in Survivor Cook Islands, being voted out with an idol in his pocket in Micronesia, coming back as a tribe captain for Survivor South Pacific, where he is able to get voted out 3 times in the season and makes his way back from Redemption Island twice and nearly wins the game, and then finishes in early merge in Survivor Game Changers. Ozzy, definitely considered one of the greatest challenge performers in the show's history. Let's talk about someone who played a role in Ozzy getting voted out one of those times. Parvati Shallow. Parvati appears in Survivor Cook Islands initially before going to Survivor Micronesia, where she ends up winning the season as part of the aforementioned Black Widow Brigade. Parvati then appears in Heroes vs. Villains, where she is able to overcome an early target against her to make her way all the way to second place. And then coming back for Winners at War, Parvati has broken even bigger in the past year, appearing on The Traitors as one of the titular traitors. Q Burdett. We don't need to cancel Christmas. Q is on the ballot. Don't you worry. One of the biggest characters from Survivor 46. Q was someone who goes from being in a position of power to it all falling apart in the course of one night, becoming the decoy target for many, not several, votes in a row before the one time where he makes the biggest mistake with an idol in his pocket. He ends up finally getting voted out in 6th place. Ricard Foyer. Ricard, one of the standout players from Survivor 41, part of this tight duo alongside Shan before towards the end of the game, he starts to get targeted as a big threat, is able to survive due to some challenge wins, as well as forming alliances outside of Shan and turning at just the right time. Unfortunately, Ricard makes it all the way to 5th place before he gets voted out as, once again, the odds-on person to win. Da-da-da-da-da-da. This just in. Rick Devens makes the Survivor 50 wish list. Rick, a standout character from Survivor Edge of Extinction. He gets voted out in episode 4, comes back via the Edge of Extinction, and then strings together a performance of just being on the bottom and being an underdog and surviving through idol plays and challenge wins and making a big show at tribal councils to the point where going into the finale, he may be the odds-on favorite. And that is why Chris Underwood throws himself into Final 4 fire making to take Rick out as he finishes as the final juror of the season. There he is. Rob Cesternino, appearing on Survivor the Amazon, as well as Survivor All-Stars. Rob has been called in the past the best player to never win the game. Rob is someone that was able to string together an incredibly impressive strategic performance in the back and forth post-merge of the Amazon, and is one of the first players to individually flip back and forth between alliances. And of course, next we're going to talk about a guy who unfortunately plays a role in Rob going out in early fashion in Survivor All-Stars. We're talking about another Rob, Boston Rob Mariano, one of the biggest faces to come out of this show. Merge boot in Marquesas, second place finisher in All-Stars, where he plays alongside and eventually marries the winner in Amber. Heroes vs. Villains gets voted out right before jury, comes back for Redemption Island and strings together an incredibly dominant performance to finally get his win. Comes back for Winners at War as well, and recently appeared on the first season of Deal or No Deal Island. And we only need to take about 10 or so paces, what's a pace, to the left of Boston Rob on the Island of the Idols before we get to Sandra Diaz Twine. Considered the queen of Survivor, Sandra is the first player to win 2 times. She wins Survivor Pearl Island. She wins Heroes vs. Villains the entire time, showcasing her fantastic, conflictual personality, many sound bites and lines to boot. Sandra then goes on to play a couple of pretty impressive games, albeit getting voted out pre-merge in Game Changers and Winners at War. And she even made her way international as she played in Australian Survivor alongside her daughter Nina, and recently appeared on the Traders as well. Sean Rector, one of the standout characters of Survivor Marquesas, close ally of Boston Rob, and was a part of the first major power shift in Survivor history as an underdog who flipped the game on the majority. Sean made it all the way to 5th place before being taken out as a threat. Shan Smith. The Shantham is making its way to the Survivor 50 wish list. Shan, one of the biggest players of the season, was able to run a dwindling Ua tribe in the pre-merge, able to get together a new alliance in the post-merge, but it all built to a point when everyone targeted Shan, nearly everyone, as one of the biggest threats in the game, and she was shockingly had her legs cut out from under her in 8th place. We move from Shan to Shane. Shane Powers, huge character in Survivor Exile Island. Shane made the decision to go cold turkey and stop smoking right before playing. It made him irascible. It made him quick to argue with his allies. But man, it made for an incredibly fun experience with an incredibly unique character in Shane Powers, who had a chance to come back on Survivor Cambodia and unfortunately did not make the fan vote there, and neither did Teresa T-Bird Cooper. Now we're voting for T-Bird. T-Bird, 5th place finisher from Survivor Africa, of course, has made a name for herself in the podcast world by hosting Talking with T-Bird alongside Rob and with someone else who unfortunately did not get a second chance back in Cambodia, but might get one here. Tiffany Nicole Irvin, we move from all the way back in season 3 to one of our most recent Survivor characters. Tiffany was able to survive the hot mess that was the Yanu tribe, certainly had plenty of allies turned rivals, being regarded as one of the biggest threats in the post-merge from both her friends and foes, taken out in, from her perspective, a very surprising fashion, as she was yet another person voted out with an idol in their pocket at the final 8. Todd Herzog. Todd plays in Survivor China at an incredibly young age, but is able to become one of the most impressive strategic players of the era, controlling nearly every vote the entire game and putting together one of the most impressive final tribal council performances in Survivor history. Todd has also had an incredible story off screen as well, dealing with addiction, but eventually being able to become sober and absolutely turning his life around. Tyson Apostle. Tyson goes from this braggadocious young man who gets voted out early merge in Survivor Tocantins and votes himself out in Survivor Heroes versus Villains to playing the heck out of Survivor Blood versus Water despite losing his loved one early and making his way all the way to the end and finally claiming that crown. Tyson also appears in Winners at War, where he gets voted out and makes his way back from the edge of extinction, and has also recently appeared on the Challenge USA. Vesepia Towery. Vesepia, able to survive one of the original hot mess tribes in Mataamu. Again, she is another person that helps swing the entire momentum of the game in the fall of the Road to 4, and goes on to become the first Black winner in Survivor history. And last but not least, one of the most outspoken Survivor characters in recent memory, Venus Vafa. Loves chaos. Went from an outsider into an insider to being so safe, they found an idol and did not play it. Stomp, you've heard that before, only to get voted out in 7th place. And so that's our top 50, folks. Again, special shout out to everyone who made the list. I will say it's an honor just to be nominated from this perspective. And there were so many votes coming in for so many people. We could only get a top 50, and here they are. So what's next? Well, the good news is it's basically the same thing as before. Second verse, same as the first. robhasawebsite.com/vote50. Right now, we have a brand new poll up there with only the top 50. And you're basically going to do the same thing you did last time. You're going to have 20 votes, and you're going to vote for essentially the 20 people you want to see on Survivor 50. They could be the same people as last time. They could be different people. You could be voting on a theme if you want to. Really, the world is your oyster. But basically, anything you were doing in the first round, you can do again in the second round. No votes are carrying over from the first round to the second round. We are starting from square one with this top 50. So again, you want your voice to be heard. RHAPhasawebsite.com/vote50 and vote for the 20 people you want to see on Survivor 50. Voting is open from now until Tuesday, August 27th. So next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. You have a little over a week to get your votes in. Remember, one ballot per email. At 12 p.m. on the 27th, the voting is going to close. And then the next day, Wednesday, August 28th at 6 p.m. Eastern, I'll be getting together with Rob Cesternino and Shannon Gus to reveal the final results. Who will make the top 20 and officially be voted on to the Survivor 50 wishlist fan cast for Survivor 50? We shall see. The power is in your hands. As I said before, it is time to vote. Thank you all so much for this. Again, this is a really, really fun top 50. I think we've kind of like run the gamut with legends, old school players we have not seen in a long time. Of course, a lot of new era representation there as well. And I'm excited to see where the votes lie here. So again, do not throw away your vote here. All the votes are resetting, so every single vote counts. RobHasAWebsite.com/vote50 to vote for your 20 players. You have until next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. That's going to do it for this top 50 reveal. Stay tuned. The Big Brother live feed update is coming up just in a jiffy, but I hope everyone has enjoyed this top 50 reveal as well. Let us know in the comments, maybe if you want to reveal your ballot, who you're excited to see as well. We shall see who ends up making the final cut in a little over a week's time. But for now, get to voting, people. Thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I cannot wait to see how this all ends. I'll be back next Wednesday with Rob and Shannon to reveal the full cast of Survivor 50 as voted on by you. Until then, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.